you put that energy into a cup of coffee, it will vibrate the molecules and they'll heat up. Well, that's what they're doing to our sky. And when they heat up the sky, what it does, it actually rises. In that rising, it creates a low-pressure vacuum, and it literally enables these corporations to steer storms into certain areas, or in the case of this summer here in the United States, out of certain regions, which of course leads to drought. I went to an aerosol research conference in Orlando, Florida. A little less than a year ago, I learned a lot of things about how aerosols interact with cloud formation. Geoengineers are very open about their programs creating drought. We are now in global drought. Most regions now are in drought, again, a stated consequence of geoengineering programs.
Yeah.
And by putting these aerosols into our sky, they act as what's called cloud condensation nuclei. So instead of water evaporating and combining with other water molecules, eventually condensing and falling as rain, they actually adhere to the particulate that's introduced into the sky, and it migrates. And what we were talking about was here in California.
Right.
We're in drought here in California, so the rain that should be falling here in the west actually migrates over the continental divide, but eventually it has to fall, and that's one of the main reasons why we're having intense flooding in the Midwest and areas of the east. But if we look at this summer, many people in California have said they're not spraying. There have been very few visible trails right over the Los Angeles area. So we started looking at satellite, and what we have seen this entire summer, all the way from about the equator all the way up to Alaska, there has been very heavy aerosol activity, very little sunlight reaching the ocean. And what that is doing, it's creating the drought. Again, normal evaporation, when sunlight hits the water, it will create evaporation. So the sunlight's being blocked, obviously not as much evaporation occurring, but the evaporation that is happening, of course, it condenses on this particulate and it migrates. So we're getting drought conditions, and I was in the Midwest for a while, and when storms were predicted and when rain was on its way, we would watch these big, beautiful cumulus clouds and storm clouds, thunderheads start to develop, but boom, we'd watch the plains, and they'd be spraying the top of the storms, and the storm would fall apart, and it would literally migrate, the moisture would not fall. So without question, this is an engineered drought. And when I first heard about weather control, I was, I just couldn't get it. You know, I said, why would somebody want to control the weather? So we started investigating, and we found some very, well, we found monetary reasons for controlling the weather, but we also looked into military applications.
Yeah, they're betting on it, right?
Modified seed application as well.
Yeah, I mean, it seems they're betting on it. There's no limit to, I mean, never mind betting on the housing market failing. There's no limit to what they'll bet on. And you mentioned about these corporations involved in shifting the storms around. Do we know which corporations they are?
Well, we know Raytheon is involved with a lot of geoengineering patents. Looks like Hughes Aircraft, they own.
Yep. Here's
the Welsbach patent, the Hughes Aircraft patent, which was designed to specifically spray these metals. But that will be my third film. It will be Who in the Hell is Spraying, where we really investigate. And it's not, there are many corporations, many governments involved in this, and a lot of people making money on it. But initially, this was something that militaries were interested in. And there's a military document, Pat, which I know that you're familiar with. It's called Owning the Weather by 2025. That's the expressed interest of the U.S. military. And controlling the weather, we interviewed Mark McCandlish, who worked in the defense industry, gives what's called a battlefield advantage. So if you can create weather conditions which cripple your enemy,
which is us,
might not be able to get flights off of the ground, it gives a strategic advantage over the enemy. I remember when the U.S. went in to invade Iraq, and there were intense sandstorms which literally crippled the Iraqi army. And somebody said to me, they said, you know, God is really on the side of the U.S. Look what he's doing. He's bringing all of these great sandstorms and crippling the Iraqis. And at the time, I believed it, you know, because I was unaware of the weather. Now, after learning that this technology is available and has been used as early as the Vietnam War in a project called Project Popeye, where the U.S. government crippled the Vietnamese by disrupting their supply lines, by flooding them out.
There's no debate about it that they have this technology. Here is the stratospheric Wells-back seeding for reduction of global warming patent from the Hughes Aircraft Company. There are hundreds, literally hundreds of these patents. This invention relates to a method for the reduction of global warming, even though, as you say, the geoengineering is heating up the atmosphere, resulting from the greenhouse effect, and in particular to a method which involves the seeding of the Earth's stratosphere, that's across the planet, with Wells-back-like materials. And then it goes into such materials can include the class of materials known as Wells-back materials. Not sure where the origin of that comes from, sounds German. But the oxides of metal, e.g. aluminium oxide, are also suitable for the purpose. 7 and 13 kilometers above the Earth's surface, suspended in the atmosphere. And these particulates, nanoparticulates in many cases, hang around in the atmosphere. They don't just come down, you know.
Well, they eventually fall into the rain and into the air that we breathe. So we're finding, you know, pH changes, which according to geoengineers is a consequence of the programs. And these aerosols actually end up stressing the soils, which we'll get into in a minute. But you had mentioned some of the weather derivatives, betting on the weather, and what blew my mind, Pat. We heard that weather was being traded on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange.
Yeah.
And I was just blown away by that. So I made a few phone calls and contacted somebody who traded, who was a trader down there, and we went to Chicago and we learned a lot about weather derivatives and who was interested in that. And like you said, essentially it's betting on the weather. So companies, insurance companies, other people will be interested in purchasing these derivatives essentially to offset their risk due to severe weather. So Mike Agney was the trader who we interviewed, and he used an example of a company, like a seed company, that would have $5 million worth of crop in the Midwest. If they, through the use of these derivatives, insure that crop for $10 million, they have a financial incentive for the crop to fail. And we're not stating that everybody involved with trading these derivatives is behind weather control, but there certainly are corporations who are in the know.
Well, sorry, if they're aiding and abetting the genocide of people and destruction of the environment, they're going to go to jail as well.
And they, without a doubt, are behind this. Most people are under the impression that weather essentially is unpredictable in the long term, and that is the furthest thing from the truth. So if you have the playbook, you cannot lose. And what we found out, every commodity is driven by weather. So if you can predict the weather, you can literally make billions of dollars annually just by playing with derivatives on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. So very frightening. Of course, there's the financial incentive. But what we have found, which really was probably the most concerning, and you had mentioned genocide, was the genetic modification of our food supply. And we interviewed Barb Peterson of Farm Wars. And of course, aluminum oxide is one of the primary ingredients in these programs, very destructive to soils. A lot of plant life has root systems that will actually shut down when bioavailable aluminum is introduced. As a result, plants will die. They won't get the nutrients that they should. Forests are now collapsing. We interviewed several farmers organic farmers for this film. The farmers that we included in the film have seen between a 60 and 70% decline in their ability to grow natural organic foods. This is not only happening to the farmers that we interviewed, this is happening worldwide. Organic foods are failing. The reason for this, we interviewed again Barb Peterson, and she spoke about something called abiotic stress. Abiotic stress is everything that the chemtrail geoengineering programs create. It's heavy metal toxicity. It's heavy metal contamination. That will stress the soil. It is the drought. That will stress the soil. It is too much rain, which we are getting. And it is fungal overgrowth. Geoengineering programs are known because they block our sun to proliferate fungal growth. What we had learned, many crops are failing. The EPA now has stated by the year 2030 we will see a 50% increase in crop loss due to abiotic stress. But we are very fortunate, Patrick, because there is a corporation that had the insight to these issues, and they created a genetically modified seed that addresses abiotic stress that will grow in these new conditions.
Monsanto.
You got it. You got it. Thank God for Monsanto coming to the rescue. Of course, I say that very sarcastically.
Problem, reaction, solution.
Problem, the Hegelian dialectic. So there's no question. We actually included a graph in a Why in the World Are They Spraying? So go to whyintheworldarethayspraying.com to see the trailer that showed a direct correlation between severe weather and Monsanto sales. They go up together. So again, Bill Gates...
Oh, so they're already seeing the fruits of their labor.
They are seeing the fruits of their labor. So Bill Gates, who invests in geoengineering programs, what we learned was that he is also an investor in Monsanto. So through the destruction of our crops, he is also making money on the solution. Isn't that clever? So what we have here is, it's a system that works off of disaster. They are disaster capitalists. Through death and destruction, they are able to introduce their solution to this problem. And that solution, you know, I looked at it in historically how farmers have grown their food. They've been dependent on sunshine, natural seeds, and of course rain. And they've used their seeds from their crop after they harvest for the next year's crop.
Yeah.
Well, any of these genetically modified seeds are what are called terminator seeds. They will not grow for the next seeds, and so it really puts the farmer in a state of enslavement, because they're forced to go back to Monsanto or DuPont, whatever GMO seed company it is, year after year after year. So what we have essentially are natural systems that were and are under the authority of God or nature, dependent on natural systems. And through the death and destruction of that, we have these corporations that are genetically modifying these seeds. Now there's a company called Arbigen genetically modifying our forests. Our forests are collapsing as well. And through that genetic modification, they're literally usurping the authority of God or the authority of nature and bringing it under corporate authority so that these entities can have godlike power. This is what every major religion has discussed. It's been spoken about for thousands of years, and we are the ones who have been called to address this. And Pat, I've watched your videos, I've seen you hit the streets, and I know that you realize the severity of this issue, and I can honestly say this, I thank you for all the work that you're doing. You're out there hitting the streets. You are a true prophet. You are a true hero in modern day time. The tides are turning. We used to hit the streets, and I'm fairly new to this issue, but the activists who have been involved with this for over 10 years, they said, when we started this, people thought we were crazy. We would get heckled. When we hit the streets now, people are accepting this. They're realizing something's wrong. It's changing.
Well, thank you very much for your kind words. The same equally applies to you. You're having a tremendous effect on waking people up to this, so I thank you for that yourself. I've noticed actually a big change in people's attitudes. About 50% of the people have heard, about 40 to 50% of the people have heard on the streets what chemtrails are, and many of them even mention, HARP, yeah. So now we understand. I think we're applying so much pressure. It often, I've spent a long time studying the elite and why they do what they do, why they are the way they are, the psychopaths. The international bankers own these corporations, by the way. Bill Gates doesn't become a star overnight through shining shoes, rags to riches. These people are given to us, made into superstars, funneling money. They're just front men. And I've often wondered, okay, they want to depopulate the planet by 90% or more. That's not, I think it's 80% the United Nations, United Stations, I nearly said. On record, the United Nations say they want to reduce the world's population by 80%. I've often wondered, if they want to do that so their own generations can inherit the earth and only the elite, special ones, rather than us useless eaters, as they refer to us, can inherit the world, I often think, well, if they're going to carry on, if they're doing this to the planet, if they're spraying the skies and using HARP and causing all this mayhem and destruction and destroying the natural environment so it won't even replenish itself, what kind of an earth should they hope to inherit? Well, but as you say, we've reached a core investigative kind of pivotal moment here. They have the technology to replenish the earth, but it's going to cost you, right?
Well, I think you said an important thing. We're at a pivotal point, because what this is, it is literally the genetic modification of the world. Again, forests are now being genetically modified and coming up under the usurped authority of these people. So we still have natural systems left. And these programs will not be deployed forever. They will stop. And right now our ozone is being shredded from top to bottom. People are beginning to realize when they go out into the sun, they have much less tolerance. People are burning in half an hour, 45 minutes, me included. I used to stay out in the sun 5 or 6 hours. What they're doing, they're shredding our protective layer. They're literally shredding our ozone. They're throwing off the natural balance, the entire global circulation. So it's what it is, Pat, and I think their plan is to use these programs until they completely genetically modify everything. Once they have that, then the power will be handed over to them. And that's why it is incumbent upon people like you and I and other people who are aware of this issue to stand up and to say no. And you know, the biggest lie and the thing that really makes me most upset is when people say, okay, I see what's going on, but I can't do anything about it.
What's it going to take? It's going to take hundreds and hundreds of people literally occupying Monsanto headquarters, pharmaceutical companies, aluminium companies. All right. Now, who owns the biggest? Who has a share in the biggest aluminium company on the planet? Rothschild. So I think it's literally going to take people going to these, wherever they're taking off, and stopping the planes taking off, to be honest, peacefully. And they'll get battered and they'll get tasered and they may even get shot. But some people need to start organising and stopping these corporations, stopping the aluminium trucks going to the airports, occupying the aluminium plants, literally physically stopping them taking off.
We absolutely have to. It is literally a matter of life and death. And everybody that is listening, I want you to ask the question, what kind of future do you want for yourself and for your children? And if that's a future that includes breathing clean, fresh air, and includes an abundance of food, and includes health, then it's time to act in whatever, you know, capacity that might be. And still, we're at a point where we're very close to critical mass. Once we get critical mass, it will be very simple to stop these programs. That's why there has been a tremendous disinformation push.
It's always been my hope.
That's completely failing. We are succeeding. We are growing exponentially with this movement every day. Skull, he's a Korean reggae star, just released a song called Cry Die. It's an incredible video. Look it up on YouTube. This is expected to reach hundreds of millions of people through the pop culture market. So there's literally celebrities, stars now standing up and addressing this. And for the first time, we have an issue that no matter what race you are, no matter where you live, no matter what side of the political false paradigm you are on, we are all affected by this. This is the issue that will unite humanity, and it is time to take our power back. We ended the film asking the question, why in the world are they spraying? And the answer to that question is because we allow it. And it's time to not allow it. It's time to take back our planet. It's time to restore our fragile earth. It is an issue whose time has come. So wake up, wake people up in your community. What can I do? I think the question is, what can you not do? Use whatever stage you have, whether it's within your family, wake up your family. Again, I walk to the store, I carry DVDs, and I hand them out to my neighbors. As a result, my neighborhood is awake into this issue. Like you, Pat, I hit the streets several times a year doing street activism. If you're in your workplace, go ahead and hand DVDs out. This is not the taboo topic anymore. The way that we were able and fortunate enough to address this was in a it was in a way that people who calibrate and resonate to the mainstream media, they're getting this issue by watching the DVD. So again, it's all factual, and it has been, people are getting it. People are getting it. So whatever avenue you have, use that avenue to get the word out.
I gave a chemtrail presentation. I gave 2 chemtrail presentations in a hotel in my town. We had 30 people turn up. Another time we had 40 people turn up, and we managed to make it a decent DVD of that presentation. So I have a DVD, help this radio show, help us get the information out there. The chemtrail subject is my main topic whenever I'm broadcasting. So if you buy my DVD as well of the chemtrail presentation, make copies, and buy Michael's DVD, it just helps get the information out there. So it's just a little appeal from me. It's only about £5.50 or something. PayPal. It's a chemtrail up-to-date information. 2012 January I made it, and it's about an hour 45 minutes. And also, if you're in California, please try and get to this Consciousness and Chemtrails conference. Roseanne Barr is speaking. That's extraordinary. There's another celebrity that's coming out and putting a career on the line, really, because she won't get any work after that. You know, it's just the way it is. So yeah, I must check out that record. That's superb. Are you still with us?
I am.
Yeah, okay, I'm just going to stop record for a second. We're still broadcasting, but I want to check. I just want to make sure we're right back.